All right, today we're going to look at the Nova RT Plus Mortise mechanical key override lock. Right here I've got the 79PS016 T1KL32-626. What that means is this is an RT Plus lock. It has the NFC programming, so no longer need that claw that we needed for the 79, 790 RT, all that. Same body of lock, just we put more smarts in it where it's NFC programmable, and we have the Bluetooth built in now. This one is a 1 1/4 inch mortise, auto deadbolt. It's toggle capable. It's got the long lever on it, mechanical key override using our Lori keyway, and it's got Bluetooth built in, and it's a satin chrome lock. So let's look and see what's in the box. Right here on the top is something that is very, very useful for the MKO locks. Tells you the proper way to put the keyway in the lock. This is very handy. In fact, I forget half the time one of the steps to do it. Here on the back it tells when you put the key in to set the keyway, the way you need to turn it depending on if it's a right hand or left hand lock. So we're going to hang on to this. I'm going to set it to the side. We're going to hang on to it for later. We have our mortise body here. This is a left-handed mortise. We've got our front housing. One thing you'll notice that's slightly different between this and the RT or 79, 790 locks is it has a square on it here and not a little bullseye. And those two little windows are gone here since we're not doing programming through infrared anymore. We're doing it through NFC now. And this does have the privacy portion on the back here. So we've got our strike here with the dust box. This is a handed strike. You see how on the left hand one, all this is shifted off this side. The right hand, all this will be shifted down this way. Just keep in mind these are handed. I'm gonna set that to the side because I don't need it right now. We've got our screw pack with our tail pieces, springs, all that. I'll show you where all that goes. We have our battery tube. One thing that's different about the RT Plus lock from all our other lock lines is the batteries are on the outside of the lock. So we've got this lock right here on the bottom of it is the entrance for the battery housing. Basically this tube just slides right into that housing, and that's how we power the lock. Just slide it in. Nice thing is batteries go dead, you just come slide this housing out, replace the batteries, slide it back in, or if you want to be real quick, you have a few extra of these, keep the batteries in them. You go up to the lock, pull the old one out, slide the new one in, then you've got that old one to swap the batteries for your next lock. We've got our screws for our mortise body, and then down in the bottom of the box here, we have our mechanical key override lever, and we have our inside housing here. So I'm going to set the box to the side and we're going to look through this. I'm going to go ahead and pull my lever out of the package just so it's ready. Pull my screws out. Now on that mechanical key override, you notice there wasn't a keyway in the box. That's because these jobs are purchased in groups. The keys come separate from the locks depending on your property. Most properties order these things key to like. You could have it key to like, you could have it master keyed, but those keys are going to come separately from everything else. So, got all my screws and everything out here. I'm going to set my lock to the side for a minute. I'm going to bring my wooden mount over here. Got my housing here. I'm going to go ahead and take the screws out of the dress plate. They're just real short Phillips. So I'm going to pull those out, set them to the side. Now this is auto deadbolt, so be careful not to extend that deadbolt or you can't get that dress plate off. You'd have to take the spindle and put back in the housing and turn it to retract that deadbolt. Put that in, and I'm going to set my door on its side, which you can't do in the field, but I can here in Magic TV. So I'm going to put my screws in, run these down in there. I'm going to take and pop my dress plate back on here real quick, just so I don't lose any of these little screws. Now, just for looks, pride in my work, I want to take these screws and line them up where they're pointed the same direction. I like them to be pointed up and down. All right, so we've got our mortise body in there. Now, we've got our front housing. A couple things we need to do to it. You notice we've got a place for our actual mortise spindle and our privacy spindle here. Now I've got the two spindles here. Now, depending on your lock, this spindle may actually have a washer attached to it right here. If it does, that's fine. Just means that washer goes on the exterior of the door and it keeps that rod from being able to go back through the door. But this one has the notches in it, so it actually locks in place. You can hear it. Man, that thing's locked in good. It holds in there real well. So just make sure the notch in that privacy spindle there is lined up with the notch on the housing. This is your mortise spindle here. It's got two little notches on the edge of it. I want to make sure those notches go towards the housing. They're right here. So I'm going to take that and pop it in my housing, and I put this in a a diamond configuration, not square. If I put it in square, it's not going to go in the mortise housing right. And if I forced it in, that housing would have the latch pulled in a little bit of the time. We don't want that. So put it in as a diamond. Make sure it snaps in there. I can actually hear it snap. I can feel it in there. It's holding on real well. So I've got those in. I'm going to set this to the side for just a moment. I'm going to prep my inside housing. So I've got our inside housing here, and we've got two springs that come with this. Long skinny spring and a shorter wider spring. The short wide one is designed as our lever return spring, because right now that lever just flops around. If I take and put it in the hole there and then there, and I did set my handing right, that's how you actually set the handing. I've got that, oops, no, actually I have it set backwards. Got to pay attention to what I'm doing. So I'll pop that spring right back off. No big deal here. Take and spin the handle around the other direction. Pop that spring on that side. Now my handing's set correct and the lever's returning like it should. The other spring is for our privacy features up here. It helps pull that plate back down. So I'm going to take and slide it on. This is the one that's a little bit trickier. You just have to get used to. It's got a hole in there that it locks in place on and kind of comes around the side, and it comes down to here. If my wide spring and my lever on the other side, this spring will be on the other. Just whichever side you don't use for the lever return spring, you use for the privacy spring. Now you see everything pulls back in place like it's supposed to. That's the way the inside housing should be. You notice we've got a wire up here. That's just tripping our limit switch to let it know that we've turned the handle and all that's moved up. It's just telling the lock that handle's been turned. So now we can actually put this on the door. I'm gonna get my screws ready here. These screws are not Phillips. These are actually a 1/8 hex. So I've got a 1/8 hex bit that I'm gonna put on my drill here and get it ready. That way I can run these in. And we also have some spacers here. These are to help keep things from getting crushed. These actually will go inside the holes of the door here. There's little spacers. Keeps that housing from getting crushed down. I'm gonna take my lock. I'm gonna put it through from the other side, feed that wire through the hole, make sure all my spindles come through like they should. Slides in real easy. As long as your door's prepped right, that slides in super easy. I'm gonna lay this back down, kind of slide it here. Actually, I'm gonna stand it up. It's a little easier with this lock. Usually I cheat and lay them down. This one's easier to keep standing up. I'm gonna take this inside housing. I'm gonna go ahead and plug my cables together. And I'm gonna put the slack in the door here. Got a nice big hole there. I can slide that slack into. I'm gonna line all this up and just slide it in. Goes together real easy. Take my screws, just kind of hand start them in there. 3 screws, 2 at the top, 1 at the bottom. Grab my drill. Nice thing about this lock is everything kind of lines up on its own when it goes through there, as long as the door's prepped properly. So, got those in. My handle's retracting the deadbolt. If I turn the thumb turn on the back, or excuse me, it's auto deadbolt, so I got to close the door and it extends the deadbolt. I can turn my thumb turn, and when I turn the handle, you'll see the thumb turn pop back up. Privacy's turning off. I can check that with my card right now. Oops. You know what I didn't do? I didn't put my battery tube in. Now, it's not going to be an issue on your site, but on mine, I have a piece of wood here at the bottom that's kind of blocking me, and I had a hole here in my mount to line up that battery, but I can fix this. Just take my mount off, flip it the other way around. You're not going to have this issue out there in the field because your door's not going to have a base on it like this. Mine does, yours won't. There, I fixed that. Now I'm going to slide my battery tube right on down through here and into my lock. I heard my lock power up. So now if I take that credential, I can read it. I'm getting my correct lights. I heard it unlock. If I extend the deadbolt out, turn the privacy and read it, now it's not unlocking. I don't hear the motor whir or anything like that, and the lights I'm getting are telling me privacy is enabled. So I know things are working right. Last thing I've got to do is put my keyway in. Remember I said you had this little instruction sheet before to kind of help with this? It kind of helps you get this information right, but essentially you drop your core into the handle. You have this little piece you put behind it. Once you get everything lined up in the door, you can actually tighten this set screw and it will snug the handle up. It's just kind of a shim in there. We'll take and slide that on the door. Actually, there's one step I need to show you before that. One of the things in the instructions tells you, a little drawing right here, that the little plus sign inside the hub right here needs to have the notches pointed up and down, the little notches up and down for the lever to go on. And it's kind of hard to show you that on camera, but if I look down in there, my notches right now on that plus sign are on the sides. So I'm gonna take my keyway, little trick somebody showed me, slide my keyway in there and turn it 90 degrees so it turns that plus sign the way I need. Basically, that allows this little bump on the bottom to slide up. That's what locks the lever in place. So I need that to be able to go up. So now that I've got that turned the way it needs to be, I'm going to take my key out, put that core back in the handle, put my shim piece back on there. Now my handle slides on like it should. Now, the instructions told me here that I actually need to take on this keyway to lock it in place. I need to take and pull it back off because I stuck it on before doing this. For a left-handed lock, which this is, I need to take and turn my keyway 100 degrees clockwise. So I've turned it, kind of wiggle that keyway a little bit as I'm lining things up on there till it goes in place. Then I turn it back to where the rounded portion of the keyway is to the right here, and I can pull my key out. Now that lever's on there nice and solid, it won't come off. That's putting the keyway on. Once you've done a couple of them, it gets going pretty quick, but we can test that it's working now. If I turn my lever, you see the latch is not retracting. If I put my keyway in and turn it, now the latch retracts like it should. Everything's working properly. Turn it back. It does not retract. And if you put this keyway in wrong, you'll never be able to pull that key out. That's one thing to know. Put the keyway in wrong, you cannot pull that keyway back out. So now that I've tested my key and know it's working, I can test my credential. If I read it, it retracts the latch. Even if the deadbolt's out, it retracts it. But if I have privacy enabled, that credential does not work. Turn privacy off, that credential works just fine. So that's how we mount our Nova RT Plus Mortise lock with mechanical key override. Thank you.